We have a special treat tonight. Our auteur is here to talk to us. Clay Liford, you want to come on up?
Hey.
Yay! That was awesome. That was fantastic.
Oh, thanks.
I really enjoyed it. So let's start with an easy question. Where did this idea come from?
I made a short film a few years ago that played a bunch of festivals called My Mom Smokes Weed. And that also starred Nate, who's the star of this movie, Nate Rubin. And we're kind of doing the festival circuit, and we kind of decided we knew we wanted to do another film together. And Weed was more autobiographical. It was because my mom does, whatever. But and I was like, okay, I want to write something that's a little bit more like thematically true, but still a completely fictitious story. And I was really obsessed with like teachers at the time. I made another feature called Earthling that also played South by Southwest. And Earthling was also about school teachers, too, oddly enough. It was science fiction about school teachers. I don't know. But we kind of got brave. We shot at this place called Garland High School. It's like an operational public school, like totally operational public school. And they were so cool letting us shoot there and using their students. And we shot maybe 10 minutes of the finished cut of Earthling or something in the high school, and we kind of got brave afterwards. I'm like, oh, we should do the next one. We should have the high school be more of a character. So one of my producers, Barack, he kind of tested the waters, and I'm like, sure, yeah, let's do it. So we obviously set a much larger chunk of this movie there, and every time we thought that we were pushing our luck, they kept giving us more stuff like the band uniforms.
And were you using the students for cast or crew?
Both.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Program?
Oh yeah, they have like a little film program there. So pretty much anyone that didn't have like a speaking role in the classroom were actually real students, and then a lot of them were behind the scenes too, like. Some of the, I know, like this one girl, she was like she was the follow spot for all the reunion stuff at the beginning. I was like a student at that high school. It was funny because I think I had when we were doing the festival rounds, somebody at one festival was like, yeah, we really love your movie, but it's just, I hate when those movies and you see this is another one of those movies you see all the high school students are way too old to be in high school. I'm like, well, they actually go to school there. So.
That's pretty interesting.
Kids do mature at a different rate. I'm pretty convinced of this now because I'm almost 20 years out now from high school, and they look very different than when I was in high school. Going back was weird.
Was it challenging to work with them?
No, not at all. They were great. It was like the easiest thing in the world. Kids are so easy to work with. I always make movies with kids. It's ridiculous easy as long as the parents understand what you're trying to do and get that you're not being exploitive. You're not being if you have jokes or you have situations that could be considered blue or tittillating. It's if they understand that you're not doing it for that purpose. Even more so.
Do they have any trouble with the themes in the show?
No, this is nothing too. I just made a new movie that we're editing now, which is even more, way more in that pushing the boundaries of what you can do with minors wheelhouse. But but I think that the thing is that people want to know that you're just trying to be honest, and you're kids react to things completely differently than we as adults react to. What kids are freaked out by and what kids respond to are completely different. Their issues are in a different spot, and I think smart parents get that, and the parents know that what I'm not doing is I'm just being honest. I'm not pandering,
right.
And it's not about it's funny this kid's doing this, that, and the other. It's just about being true. I guess. I don't know if that even remotely answers that question.
I think so. It actually sounds like you used your resources. That's what you seem to be touching on. Is I see that you used what resources were available to you, and I heard that this film was largely inspired because you wanted to work with some people that you'd worked with before.
Yeah. Nate was it was a big deal. I wrote a lot of the roles were written specifically for people. Nate, the lead, I wrote that role for him. Pretty much everyone except for the two conspicuous, and the thing I lost the most sleep over was casting Maddie, the lead opposite Nate, and also in Re-Up. Those are the two ones I had no, I don't know any 15-year-old black kids. I mean, I'm a 38-year-old Jewish dude. I don't know any. But
so where did you find Maddie?
So Maddie was an interesting story because I have a producer named Eric Steele, who's a really good guy, and he would keep bringing people in. I'm like, I don't know. And then he's like, I met this girl at 2 o'clock in the morning at a Fuzzy's Tacos in Denton. And I remember giving Eric the speech, and I was like, all right, I'll see her, but like this is not your personal like casting couch. You're not bringing in people that you just like want to go on a date with. So I brought her in, and I fully preparing that she was going to be horrible. And she was great, and I was like, my brain couldn't process that she was good, so I made this poor girl come back like 5 times, because I'm like, nah, it's clearly she's not good, but like no, but she came back and she was amazing, so yeah.
Surprises.
Yeah, and she was also like like I was at first. Because she came in the first time and she had like makeup on and she looked nice and she's an attractive girl, but and I really wanted that character to be like a wallflower, and she came back like audition too and she like scrubbed down and she was like not she was letting it all come out, you know, but she was great. She was really brave to do that, and she had not a significant amount of acting experience. She had like a minor amount of acting experience, but nothing really before this. And I think she really exploded. She's represented now. She's an agent, and she's working all the time. Re-Up was oddly a discovery because I do corporate videos for a client who like sponsors like young he does like this philanthropic work with the young entrepreneurs, and he's like, oh, this kid, he's a Katrina survivor, and he's a street performer, and he wants to start a rap record label, so I've been sponsoring him. He's just really magnetic, and he just showed me this rap video that this kid Ryan did, and I'm like, well, has he ever acted? He's like, no, but he might be able to. So I just had this weird feeling he might be good, and he came, and he was awesome. He scared the crap out of us, because he's basically playing himself. But, like, I mean, like, an evil version of himself. He's a really nice kid. But yeah, it's a funny thing. It's like actors are trained to play other people. That's what they're actors. But like non-actors, you can get great performances out of as long as you have them play something that's like some extension of themselves. Yeah. As long as you're not going to ask a non-actor to do Shakespeare or to do something that's completely opposite from their from their real life. But if you're asking them to do some sort of extension of where they came from, I mean, you can get amazing stuff. And Ryan was a prime example of that. And any of the rap music in the movies, him too.
That's very interesting. I have to ask then. So, what's your style? How close to the script are these actors? You know, when you're working with real people, sometimes like improv.
Pretty close. I mean, I like to give the actors an opportunity to improv. We always do like if it's a dialogue scene that actually warrants it, we'll have like the last take. We'll go off the book a bunch, and occasionally there'll be like little nuggets. Like the one line, I wasn't sitting in the screening, I don't know if anybody laughed at, but like consistently the one line in the movie that gets a laugh every time is the wizards thing that our friend Ted says, who's not an actor, who really is a D&D nerd. We're shooting at his place with his own D&D books. All those guys are like my for real nerd friends who've never acted before, and they're like, we don't know why you want us to be in this movie. I'm like, no, just trust me, you're great. But that's like, Ted like steals the movie with that one stupid line that I can take no credit for. It's completely 100% him just being Ted.
That's pretty cool. You guys have questions? Any questions out there? Go for it.
You shot in a lot of different formats, yeah?
No, just one.
Really? Because some of it looked like film and some of it looked like video, different types of video even.
That's probably just me being a crappy colorist.
What did you guys shoot on?
It's all in the 5D. Yeah, it's strictly one format. Yeah.
You have a big crew, small crew?
It's pretty small. I don't know. I mean, it's big for like a no-budget indie, but we're like 25, 30 people maybe.
That's pretty sizable.
It fluctuates, you know, as a per need. We shot the entire movie. I'm at the point now in my career like I can't ask for freebies anymore because I've been doing this for a long time. So like not that I wouldn't anyway, but so my crews get paid. They don't get paid a lot, but they get paid. Mm-hmm. But which also means that because there's payroll, literally the most expensive thing in making the film is just the payroll for the day. So it limits our days. So this movie was shot, I believe, the full crew days is 15, and then we had 2 skeleton crew days. But essentially, the movie was shot in 15 days, and that's kind of been the model. It's not a model I like because it's the one thing. It's as we were starting, the film started to get bigger. You're like, I just want a few more days. I don't want explosions. I don't want Tom Cruise. I just want a few more days to make the movie.
So how did you raise the funding for it?
This one was strictly because based on some people had seen the fact that my previous feature Earthling, which could not be any more radically different except for the fact that it's also about school teachers for some weird reason, played South by Southwest in 2010, and it's gone around. It's on iTunes and the Xboxes and anything that has a joystick attached to it. Well, there was that, and then Weed, my short film, My Mom Says Weed, played Sundance, and then there was a profile in Texas Monthly, which oddly, I found out investors don't really care about what we do. You can be oh, I went to Sundance, or oh, I played something that's not their world. But somehow it was a legitimizer that I was in Texas Monthly.
Oh.
So that this guy is wait, saw your, he wrote the check right there. He's check, because we were in Texas Monthly. So
that's awesome.
And I almost didn't even do that Texas Monthly article because I didn't know anything that was even important.
Right.
But this goes to show you, we live in our bubbles. They have a completely different bubble they live in. And, I mean, it was really important, to kind of...
That's interesting.
You have to think very differently when you're raising money for movies than when you're wearing, definitely wearing a different hat.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a business house.
Yeah. And thankfully, I have a really good producers who do that a lot better than me, because I can barely even balance my own checkbook.
Yeah, I saw your producer team is pretty big. That's four or five people on it.
Yeah, no, we got a really good producing team. My producer's actually with that film in Tribeca, right? At this exact moment, she's in Tribeca with another movie she produced.
Very cool, very cool. Any other questions out there? Oh, no, go ahead.
You mentioned your next project is kind of pushing the envelope a little bit more.
Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate on that, or you
I'll tell you, the brief is just about kids who write erotic Harry Potter fan fiction.
Awesome. Awesome.
And there you go.
I have a question for you. I heard that you are big on testing, and I know as a filmmaker I'm very big on testing too. So I was going to ask, what kind of testing did you do, and how do you think that affects your experience here?
So I think testing, when she says testing, she means actually test screening your movies for audiences. I think testing with filmmakers and artists or whatever gets a really bad rap because it's in Hollywood they use testing for the wrong reason. They use it to basically see how much more they can shape it for a specific demographic of film. But for me, it's I'm just testing it to see if shit works, because I can have a ridiculously long cut of the movie and have all my scripted vision in there, but if it amounts to an audience sitting there staring at the screen with their arms crossed, angry, it's what's the point? And that's more painful and it's horrible. You don't want to put anything in there that doesn't work. I mean, I literally cut out almost a minute before the screening just because, and I hadn't looked at it in half a year, and I went back and we were just tweaking on some stuff, and I'm I don't even need this. So I literally cut stuff out between now and the last time we ever screened it. I think it's just about, you can totally tell by me standing here, my background is actually stand-up. But
awesome.
the one rule, the first and most important rule you learn in doing stand-up is you start the joke as late in the joke as possible and you end it as soon as possible, because it's just you want to keep people interested.
Yeah.
And that it definitely applies to all storytelling, especially when you're with a very impatient format like film. It's not like a novel, Novel is the one format, prose is the format where you can get away with being a little bit, floaty with your, and just long-winded. I mean, we cut out, and it's funny because as you make more films, my first couple films, besides being really bad, when you're cutting stuff out, you're cutting it because it's obvious to cut out. It's horrible. The stuff you're cutting out, no one would ever argue for it to stay in. It's just stuff it's out of focus or it's just horribly acted. That stuff is so obvious to go. But as you kind of get better, you get to the point you're cutting out good stuff. Like, everything that got cut out of this movie is, like, good material. But it just didn't really work, pacing-wise in the overall scheme of the film. Like, there's an entire subplot that through testing in this movie that I cut out. Like, you see like a micron of it in the film that the mom and the daughter run an Herbalife business. So it's like a multi-level marketing scam. There's almost 30 more minutes of that shit that you would probably shoot yourself if you had to watch it.
So, well, you just said it was good.
It was
You're
good.
gonna release it as like
It's
sneak
good.
peeks,
It's
or we're
great.
gonna
It's going to be a fantastic extra feature on like a DVD or whatever format actually exists by the time we get this out on Disney. It's going to be a great holographic extra on your holographic.
Excellent. So did you test the script before you went to production?
I did somewhat. I probably. Not as much as I do now, but we did a thing where we did actually cut out a bunch of stuff before we even shot it. And it seems crazy to think, because this movie's not super short. It's not super long, but it's definitely not, like, short. And it's crazy to think that I cut out, like, 10 pages before we even shot, and I cut out another 30 minutes worth after. I'm like, what the hell? Where was that time going? Yeah, because we cut out, like, anything that was, like, bridge material. Like, stuff like this, like, kind of, like, you tend to overthink things when you're writing. You tend to think, oh, you need to explain something you don't need to explain. But yeah, there was, like, crazy, we cut out some pretty massive things. Like, again, another example is you said a janitor in, like, one shot, and he's, like, talking to himself, and Mitch, after he's beat up, he sneaks in behind him. He's, like, a major character in our first cut. Like, he kind of becomes a bit of a collaborator with Mitch. He finds out what's happening. He helps him break into the school a few times. And then we're like, you know what? We can see he left the door open. We just assume that's how he gets into school every night. So we just kind of end up cutting all this stuff out.
Yeah.
Because it was just, that character was there to almost over-explain how Mitch had so much access to the school. Which, having cut him out, no one's ever come up to me and asked me, like, how's he getting to school after hours? Like, no one's ever given a shit about that. So it's like, again, things that you think are important when you're writing it, more often than not, if it's like a logistical thing, most people could care less if they're into the film.
Gotcha. So did you intend this as a comedy? I heard somewhere you wrote it as a comedy.
I did. It was written as a comedy, and on the page when you're reading it, it's really funny. And then when you have the blessing and the curse, the double-edged swords, when you hire really good actors to do kind of heavy material, even when you intend to be funny, and they actually perform it the way it should be performed, it kind of comes off a little bit less funny than you anticipated. So I kind of freaked out before we premiered at South by. I'm like, oh my god, this is like not funny anymore. It's like a drama. But then people were laughing at South by, and so I felt like better again. But it really kind of, I feel like we're kind of walking in both worlds a little bit, and I'm not sure. I think I'm okay with that.
Oh yeah.
It's a weird thing because you can laugh at really horrible things and it's just words on paper, but suddenly when a person puts their heart and soul and they embody it, and it's like, and their horrible things are happening to these innocent, nice people, it's like, you're like, I thought that was really funny, and maybe it's not that funny.
So how is that for you? Has that affected you as a creator, where you make a comedy and then it turns out to be completely different for you? Or
No, it was just more interesting because it was just part of the process. It was definitely the most middle of the road, or not middle of the road, but definitely tonally interesting film that I'd done. I mean, Weed has like a serious moment in it, but it's like so bookended by comedy, you kind of forget that it has a serious moment in it. And then like Earthling is such a bizarre movie that like all bets are off, so it's like I can go there. You had a question, huh?
Well, I have a question and then I have a reassurance.
Ooh.
The question, you mentioned people wondering about how he got into the school at night, and I've seen a couple versions now. The only thing I wondered, how did he get Jamal's locker combination?
Oh, she says it. When they go in to put the guns in the first time, she says the 420-0.
Oh, okay.
Which is like a dumb weed
The
joke.
other thing, I think it is, I've seen it 2 or 3 times now. I do think it's really funny. You've never had it in a house with like 300 people, have you? Yeah.
Oh no, we've had it in really
Have you?
big screens, yeah.
I was just gonna say maybe you haven't had the huge chorus of laughter, but I think it's pretty funny.
No, it's funny. It depends on where it plays.
Funny.
Yeah, and that's reassuring because I was convinced when we were testing it, because you do like narrative works in progress at the Austin Film Society, which is like an incredible resource if you happen to be a filmmaker in this town. It's like, and if you remember the AFS, because they get people in there who are not your friends, not your family, and have no interest in like making you happy. And they'll they rip the arms and the legs off your child.
Serious going.
But yeah, but no, it's like that screening was just because we were still tweaking things that really had me freaked out. But then when we cut out what needed to be cut out, it was a crazy thing. Was you can recover? It's what audiences can recover from, because the reason we cut out, besides for length, the reason we cut out the Herbalife subplot was because the mom is so mean to him. She doesn't physically beat him up, but she so horribly verbally berates him in one scene that people could handle him being physically abused, but they could not handle the fact that his mom was being so mean to him. It was like that was the one that just like took. Like, oddly enough, that's one that took it over the edge. And I never in a million years thought, like, not a psychologist, but yeah, I never thought that would be the one. Yeah, there was a horrible scene where he, like, out of anger and spite, like, threw away all their candy bars or Herbalife candy bar things, and she dug him out of the trash and then made him eat one, like sat him down and forced him to eat like this rotting, disgusting thing, which was just like too much. It was like there was no turning back.
She's not human anymore.
From that, yeah. And like people could totally handle the two like beat up scenes, the physical abuse scenes, but that like mental torture of that scene they couldn't handle. It was a very interesting lesson to learn.
So it sounds like you recommend testing. So is there anything else, any advice that you have for other indie filmmakers? Anything else you'd like?
Yeah, I mean, just if you could, I mean, just hire good, hire well. I think the best thing I can do as a director is just hire the right people and get out of their way. If I have one skill as a director, it's definitely I know who to hire. I had an amazing crew, an amazing cast, and I'm not a micromanager. I think a lot of first-time directors micromanage a lot.
You seem like you're into teamwork.
Yeah, I'm happy. I want them to make the script better. Honestly, I feel like if I had only made a movie as good as the script, it would have definitely failed. The fact that like it's so much better because of everybody's contributions, it's a big deal. That and the testing. That and the testing.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
down here to talk to us tonight. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you to Violet Film Cinema and the show Austin. And you guys go online and sign up for our next event. We'll send you updates.
Good.
Thank you very much.